I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're delving into a wonderful book. It is called Journey to the Prize, and it's written by a remarkable author. His name is Karl Peterson. This gripping novel takes us on a perilous adventure set against the backdrop of 1933 Nazi Germany. The story follows Alex and his best friend Manny as they embark on a daring mission to help Alex's cousin thwart a Nazi project with potentially catastrophic consequences. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at City of Books for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Karl, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having me as your guest today.
My pleasure. Let's start with the big picture. Tell the folks at home what the book Journey to the Prize is about.
Well, you mentioned it pretty much at your introduction, and it has to involves my main character, Manny Guzman, who lives on his horse ranch in Paraguay in South America in 1933, and he has a best friend named Alex, who's of German heritage, from German immigrants to Paraguay, and his cousin works at a science institute in Germany when the Nazis come to power, and he's forced to work on a new project, and he needs help in smuggling it out of the country. He doesn't agree with the new regime that took power there, and when they travel there to help out, that's where the story picks up its main, story that it involves in.
Right, the main themes of the story. Absolutely. What inspired you to write a novel based in Nazi Germany in 1933?
Oh, well, I always liked history, and I studied history, in high school and college, and World War II. I always read, history about World War II. I even traveled to some places in Europe to see some of the sites of, where World War II was fought. And so I like that time in history, and then the 1930s in general, like newsreels. I always like old newsreels that they showed, and let's say what went on in Great Britain and the United States, and the history. Always, I was always fascinated by that history and older movies made in that period, like the 1930s and 40s.
Yeah, it's a very romantic era in many ways, even though a lot of craziness was going on in the world. What areas of Europe did you travel to that helped inspire this story?
Oh, I had been to London, but I've also visited Germany, Berlin, and Dresden, and Nuremberg, and I had been to Poland, and
Mhm.
in 1982, I also took a trip to the Soviet Union and been to Moscow and Leningrad.
So you've explored that part of the world quite extensively.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it like being in those parts of the world where, some pretty terrible things were happening, places like Dresden?
Uh, well, reflect. Wow. Just sometimes I was overwhelmed. It was so different being outside of, the country, the United States that you're so used to, and different different situations. I like Moscow very much, the subway system, and I had been to Warsaw, Poland, and it's hard to believe you were in the on the soil of the country where war went on, and
Yeah.
I had also visited Auschwitz concentration camp.
What was that like? That must have been pretty
Uh,
powerful.
yeah, it was sort of heart wrenching, really, but
Mm.
it's history, and I wanted to learn, as much history as I could.
Yeah. Amazing. Now, these weren't trips you took specifically to research your book, or were they?
Oh no, why? I just wanted to go on vacation, And then by the time I wrote my book many years later, I drew inspiration from my past travels there.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Tell us a little bit about writing the book. When did you start writing the book?
Oh, it was during the coronavirus, and I was coming toward the time, my retirement was coming up soon, and I even wrote it in retirement. But I was working at the time, even past retirement age. And again, like I said, it was during the coronavirus, and
Yeah.
there was a lot of time to think. And I thought, could I write a book? And I started jotting down a few paragraphs and saying, can I make this story, develop over here? Then can I do this? And I kept adding to the book and adding to the book. And so what plot can I come up here? How further can I take it to? And it just fell into place for me.
Yeah, that's terrific. That's terrific. COVID and the pandemic was in many ways the worst of times, but it was also the best of times because it gave people time to stop their usual routines and think and give them time to write. I mean, we were locked down, we were kept from family, we couldn't work in many cases. So it was a good time to be creative and fill the days that way, that's for sure. Tell us a little bit, was your dad in World War II?
Pardon?
Was your father in World War II?
Oh no, my father, he was a commercial fisherman along the east coast of the United States, off New Jersey, and he was exempt. But I had two uncles. My uncle served in one uncle, Danny, served in the Marines, and my uncle Harold, he served in Western Europe from France and into occupied Germany. He served. So I know I had two uncles who served in the war.
Did your uncles ever tell you stories of wartime at all?
Yes, a little bit. I think my uncle Harold, he had some PTSD after he returned. He was in France and to Belgium and the Battle of the Bulge. And after being in occupied Germany, he came home. And again, we didn't know maybe what was wrong. And, we concluded now after he passed away, my cousins, that he might have had PTSD and we didn't know it really at the time.
Yeah. And it was an era when men didn't talk about feeling down, feeling blue, feeling depressed. They were told just to suck it up and be a man, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So it made it especially hard for people who had witnessed and been through a lot during wartime. Tell us a little bit about the relationship between Alex, Manny, and Alois.
Uh, oh, Manny, let's see, he lives at his ranch and his best friend is Alex. And Alex, his cousin Alois lives in Germany, and I have them mostly corresponding, by letter. They sent Christmas cards and communicated long distance as they could in the early 1930s. And then goes, he answers his letters right away that he says, I really need your help. I'd like to see you again. I really need your help. I don't agree with this plan that I've been working on. And Manny being, Manny is the type of person who would give you your shirt off your back. And he said, I'll help out any way I can. And Sebastian, his brother, he was real close to his older brother, his big brother. And Sebastian didn't go on the trip. He stayed home while it was just Manny and Alex heading to Germany to help out the situation there.
Can you talk to us a little bit about the nature of the prize that you mentioned in the title?
What the prize? Really, if you read the book, there's really more than one when you add it all up as the book comes to an end. He really more than one comes Manny's way, but there is one momentous thing that happens that's really big, and that happens in the last chapters of the book.
Right.
And I won't say exactly what they are at this time, but
Exactly.
that's the hint I'll give now.
Yep. You don't want to spoil it, that's for sure.
Mhm.
Are Manny and Alex based on anybody you knew in real life at all? Are they composite characters or anything?
Um, well, I have my friend who's helping me out on the computer. His name's Gerald, and Gerald, when he was younger, he was a jockey,
Hmm.
and he, rode horses and knew horsemanship. And when he was younger, I saw pictures of him when he was younger, and a little bit is based on him.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how, just different characteristics and different traits that we see in different people, different personalities. We imbue our characters that we put in our novels with those folks, and it helps bring them to life. You know, how they would speak, how they would react, and it makes it a little bit easier, that's for sure. Were there any obstacles or anything you found challenging in writing the book?
Obstacles? No, I was surprised. It flowed pretty easy for me. The names, I just snapped my fingers and I said, "What's the name of this character? What'll be the name of this character?
Right.
It'll, what'll be the name of this character?" And the first thing that came to my mind, I said, "Yeah, that'll be their name."
Mm.
And so mostly everything came easy. There's intrigue. There's a little bit of comedy around the romance in the book. And I wrote, you know, I wrote, some of the book where let I let it develop, where at first I might not want it to go in a certain direction, but then I said to myself, "Oh, let it go a little more this way," and I did that.
Great. Well, it really worked because the characters really feel very, very realistic. That's for sure. Have you envisioned the book as a TV series or a movie, perhaps?
Uh, oh, I'm taking one day at a time. I said it would be nice. It would be nice, whatever anyone wants to do.
Yeah,
I'm just going along with the flow in that area.
exactly. Yeah. Well, it's nice when you put your work out there. You never know whose hands it's going to wind up in. We just got to figure out what actors would play Manny, Alex, and Alois. That's our biggest dilemma. But we'll let the casting department worry about that. Unless you have actors in mind already for Manny and Alex. Have you thought about that at all?
Oh, I have no idea. You
Yeah.
know, they might have to have German and Spanish accents.
Right.
That's all I can think of who they could be. I think Maria would be a dark-haired young lady.
Mhm.
Sebastian would be uh, his description's on the first page. He would be a big, tall man. He
Mhm.
in the book he's much larger than Manny physically,
Mhm.
and Manny's a shorter person who's like the size of a jockey.
Mhm.
And yeah, but I don't know any actors who would fit those
Mhm.
images at the present time.
Yeah. They're probably out there. We just got to find them. That's easy. You throw a dead fish and you'll hit an actor. There's lots of them out there. That's for sure. Um, what's did you balancing the factual parts of that era with the fictional parts of that era, was that any challenge for you at all?
A little bit. I try to make it historically close as possible. Uh, in the book, I gave the names of two ships, ocean liners are in the book. And I wasn't sure because I have the book set in 1933, and the names of those ships might not have been christened as
Mhm.
early as 1933. So I tried to be as accurate as I could, but there may be a little thing, maybe something like that, maybe off a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's poetic license then. Sometimes you can bend it a little bit like that without any objections, that's for sure. Was there anything surprising that you learned when you were researching your book?
Well, I knew, I guess the background of the times I knew quite a bit, of historical things. I had I had to find out in those days that when you went to a telephone, it was the telephone was on the wall and you picked up the receiver. And in those days, you had to send wires like Western Unions. And I I wanted to find out if you could send Western Union telegrams from ocean liners. And I was told that you can do that.
Hmm.
So I tried to research small things that that you could do or couldn't do, in let's say 1933.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It makes it more real when you have the technology correct, the way the phone is used, the wires are used, and so forth. And are you working on any other books?
No, nothing, not at the present time. I jotted down a few notes of a sequel,
Mhm.
and when the readers read my book, there's a couple unanswered questions toward the end,
Mhm.
and it's sort of left open as you finish the book. There's a couple open ends a little bit, and the readers will find out what they are.
Yeah. And so you might answer those questions in a sequel, but you're not exactly sure yet. It's kind of still formulating up here.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds good. What do you hope readers learn or take away from Journey to the Prize?
Oh, there's a few things to learn. Like I have bullying as taking place in the book, and again, people should be aware of bullying, how wrong it is, and then evil. The Nazis. It seems that in today's news, it seems making Nazis villains isn't popular anymore as it used to be. Darn it, they should be villains like they always should be.
Exactly, exactly. You know, when you think back, 1933 was, close to 100 years ago now, 90 years ago or so. But we still have major issues in the world. If you look at what's happening in Ukraine and so forth, what do you make of the conflicts that are still out there today?
Um, well, like in those days, uh, people should, history repeats itself,
Hmm.
and tragically people don't remember what history, even recent history, was, and they're condemned to repeat it,
Yeah,
and we should be aware of that.
absolutely. If you don't remember history, like you said, we're condemned to repeat it. And very scary what's happening in that part of Europe right now, that's for sure, and in the Middle East. Lots of wars going on right now. It's a troubling time. And tell me a little bit about your life outside of writing.
Well, I grew up in Monmouth Beach, New Jersey, and it's right on the Atlantic Ocean. So going to the beach was a big part of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and the town I live in, Wanamassa, that's only a couple miles from Monmouth Beach. So I lived by the ocean all my life, and I liked going to the beach
Hmm. You think you
and
got a book
fishing.
brewing
When
there?
I was young,
You
oh,
could,
I'm sorry. When I was younger, I went fishing. Enjoyed fishing and boating.
yeah. I was going to say, do you think you have a novel in you about the Jersey Shore? There's certainly a lot of stories that took place on the Jersey Shore over the years.
No wonder. Uh, I'm trying to think. I can't think of anything
Yeah.
that I would want to place something at the place a setting at the Jersey Shore.
Right.
Though though it's though it's a nice place, to maybe you know develop a story. But I haven't thought it at the present time.
Yeah. Yeah. I
That,
think that might be a good one for sure. Tell me a little bit about Superstorm Sandy. Were you guys affected by that where you were?
oh yes, we had. I remember the power was out for 3 days. Uh,
Wow.
the town Monmouth Beach, the town of Monmouth Beach and Seabright, they took a really tremendous hit a lot of destruction. Seabright was almost destroyed,
Yeah.
which is the town just north of Monmouth Beach. And it took a while for things to be repaired.
Yeah.
But I'm glad, the house, in my house I live in, wasn't damaged. The power was out, but the house I lived in wasn't damaged at all. So that was a blessing there.
Yeah. Yeah. Some towns, like you said, like Seabright, basically completely destroyed. They had to rebuild the whole town. It's pretty amazing. Devastation. Mother Nature devastation versus man-made devastation, like you depict in the book about World War II. Tell me a little bit about writing this book. Did it change your perspective on the war? Did it make you reflect on it differently? Did it make you think about it any differently?
Uh, I could say a little bit, though. I pretty knew much of the history, even the dark history of the time. So I just applied that to the book.
Yeah.
And knowledge I already knew, and I thought, wow, it's as bad as it could get. So,
Yeah.
I thought, that was the best application I did for the book.
Absolutely. Who was the first person you gave the book to when you were done, or were you giving it to somebody chapter by chapter as you went along? Tell us about your first reader.
Oh, of course. Well, the dedication has to do with that. One of my best friends was Blake, who passed away in 2015, and thinking of the Jersey Shore, he was a surfer. He was a sort of adventurous type of guy and a surfer. And his mom, I know I'm close to his mom, miss his mom. I gave her the first book. His mom is still alive, and I gave her my first copy.
Amazing. And what was her reaction?
Oh, so seeing the dedication, she thought it was wonderful. She told me.
Yeah, that is wonderful. Well, the name of the book is Journey to the Prize by Karl Peterson. It is a gripping novel that takes us on a perilous adventure set against the backdrop of 1933 Nazi Germany. The story follows Alex and his best friend Manny as they embark on a daring mission to help Alex's cousin thwart a Nazi project with potentially catastrophic consequences. It's a great book. It's a well-researched book. It's a well-written book. It will really bring you back to another era, and will also point to the fact that atrocities that happened then are still happening now. And so it's a good wake-up call as well. Karl, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Oh, thank you very much for having me again. And, it was great talking with you, sir.
I enjoyed talking with you as well. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.